Hello and welcome to The Well. I'm your host, Dr. Brendan Arm, Doctor of Acupuncture and Oriental Medicine, Chinese medicine herbalist, and founder director of Lotus Integrative Medicine in Santa Monica, California. There's a wealth of health-related information out there, and I'm joined today by this wonderful group of integrative and holistic medical doctors and practitioners to share some of our favorite wellness tips. Please let me introduce you to Dr. Heath McAllister, a naturopathic doctor and a registered herbalist, Leona West, a clinical nutritionist and herbalist, also trained and certified in functional medicine, and Dr. Rob Krochmal, a medical doctor and a practicing physician who is board certified in family medicine, nutrition, and integrative and holistic medicine. So let's begin. Today's topic is digestive health, leaky gut, and cleansing.
Well, I would say that anyone who does any kind of holistic care tends to have a decent focus on gut health. Your gut is kind of the deepest tissues inside the body. It's, not only where we absorb nutrients from, but it's also the seat of our immune system. You have the kind of the richest lymphatic tissue, the largest lymph nodes in the body are the mesenteric lymph nodes of the gut. And so your gut is such an important organ, not only for digestion, but for immunity and for modulating inflammation and for hormones and neurotransmitter production. I mean, it's central to health. And so when I don't know where to go with a case, and I tend to gravitate toward treating the gut because I can touch so many different organ systems and benefit the body in so many ways by helping to heal the gut. Now, how you heal the gut is a question that we're all going to have opinions on. So I'll throw it over to somebody else to start that conversation.
And that's a great intro. Before we even dive in, I would just add a couple things, which is that not only is it that deepest kind of gut feeling that you have, but in some ways, I mean, it's kind of surprising to think about it, that it's actually the surface of our body as well. So it's actually the inside and it's the outside. So it's continuous with our skin. It's the epithelium. It's the first thing that food and things that we ingest from the outside hit. And not only that, but it's such a delicate, thin membrane, the actual gut lining itself. I like to think about it like frog skin. So it's got these kind of pores that we use to absorb our food. And as we're thinking about leaky gut, just for the viewer, some people have some questions about that, the cells that are interlocked in that very thin membrane, when there's food allergies or toxins or inflammation, the cells can start to get inflamed, and the gut can leak in ways that it's not supposed to. And that's a spectrum that we all have. All of us have some level of leaky gut. So it's not like you have leaky gut or you don't have leaky gut. It's how healthy is your gut ultimately.
Mm-hmm. And in addition to that, we can talk about food, but also I think it's important to understand how stress impacts leaky gut. So that also, I make that same illustration with people I work with, and how stress can open up and create leaky gut as well. So it's not just the toxins and medications or dietary choices, but also just our well-being can really impact gut health as well.
From a Chinese perspective, they say the spleen and the stomach are paired organs, or yin and yang organs. One is solid and one is hollow. Spleen being the solid one, and the stomach being the hollow one. But together they make up the earth element. And in Chinese medicine, as Dr. McAllister said, well, it's the center of, because we are beings that live on this planet Earth. So we're all connected to Earth. So when you're talking about foods that might be supportive to the digestion or for leaky gut or for cleansing, well, maybe not so much for cleansing. Cleansing might require a little bit more of a bitter palate, bitter foods, but at least for digestive strength and tonifying of the digestion, Chinese medicine also often encourages patients on the several, next several couple concepts. One is to eat foods that are grown in the earth or that sprout out right from the earth. So things that are, if someone has a particular allergen, then that has to override, some of these recommendations. But in general, like root vegetables, garlic and ginger, and parsnips and turnips and carrots and yams, potatoes, things that are grown in the earth, or even things that sprout out right from the earth, like deep leafy greens, like spinach, chard, bok choy, broccoli, stuff like this, the green foods. And for sure, instead of doing so much raw foods, they'd probably recommend more slow cooked, stewed foods, that are already partially digested, even though, by cooking, you might break it down a little bit. So maybe not as nutrient dense, but it may be a little bit more absorbable. So those are some of the Chinese medicine concepts of trying to eat foods that are grown close to or in the earth, that are slowly cooked or stewed, or a lot of soups. And they even put a color to it. So it tends to be like yellow or orange foods tend to be more foods to tonify the digestion. So again, maybe that's pumpkin or squash. I guess corn is also in there, but corn to me is, for some people, is very difficult to digest. So other yellow foods, and sweet like banana, but that's yellow, but it's a little bit sweet, but different yellow or orange foods. And lastly, breakfast is the big meal from a Chinese perspective to tonify the digestion, and a moderate lunch and a light dinner. So those are just a couple ideas. I'm sure everyone here has got lots of ideas.
I think that's great, Brendan, in terms of like, having, if you think about your spleen qi as your digestive qi, that by cooking a food, you're essentially pre-digesting it ahead of time. Or you could think about fermented foods, or, fermented cultured foods, or, that those foods are in some ways already partially broken down. And the reason that can be important is that, eating raw foods is wonderful. We should have raw foods. We should have lots of fibers. Those are great things. They can also be difficult for us to actually machinery to digest these things can be, it can require more of the body. And that on that note, in terms of digestive power, when we are, like Leona said, in a stressed state, that can really impact our health. The way it impacts our health is that your body really kind of toggles between two different types of nervous system output. We have the sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight or flight response. And then we have the parasympathetic nervous system, which we call your rest and digest. And if you're in a stressed state, you're in that, potential threatened state, your body doesn't prioritize digestion. It's not something that will keep you alive in the moment. Whereas, energy to your legs or to your heart, those are things that are survival and, designed to keep you alive in an immediate threat. But they don't really facilitate proper digestion. You don't secrete a lot of stomach acid and pancreatic enzymes, and these, all these things are put on hold. So if you're in a stress state, it's like your machinery is further compromised. And then if you add a lot of processed foods on there, or, things that are difficult to digest, like a lot of gluten or even a lot of dairy isn't necessarily easy for people to digest. Now you have a recipe for really like, gunking up the works, and so to say. And so that's its own issue with digestion, is the degree of processed foods we eat, the types of foods, and then our mental state while we're eating is critical. And people don't think about this. Every day, people are driving down the road, eating a cheeseburger, and sipping a Coke and texting their friend, and they're driving. And like, what an opposite way to nourish your body. That's not the way we are supposed to be. We're supposed to sit. We're supposed to take a long time to eat. Americans rush through their food. It's not a recipe for proper digestion. So we really need to learn about mindfulness, about taking some deep breaths before you eat a meal, or, even having some bitter flavors before a meal to stimulate digestion. Otherwise, it's no wonder that so many people have gas and bloating and cramping and indigestion and, the gambit of digestive concerns that people come to me with. Everybody both has a sleep problem and has a digestive problem that come to see me, 100% of my patients.
There's so much stress going around. That's got to be why, connected to it. So some type of practice just to meditate or calm down the nervous system is good for digestion.
And on that
And
note,
also just,
go ahead.
well, I was just saying, and giving the gut a rest. And that's why, a gut cleanse and a cleanse are usually very different things in my practice. So there's different types of cleanses, and a gut cleanse is really about thinking about foods that are pre-digested. So cooked, sprouted, soaked, creamed, blended, and using moist heat cooking instead of dry heat cooking. So anything that uses air And oil is harder to digest, but when we use water and, steam water, it's a stew, it's a slow cooker, pressure cooker, soup, the way that that's really breaking down and also just harnessing the power of that food. Yes, you lose some nutrition, but from an energetic standpoint, you also gain a lot with the vegetables and the herbs and the spices and everything that you're putting together when you're making a moist heat preparation. So a gut healing diet is really kind of giving your gut a break, really harnessing and concentrating those nutrients, like those beta carotene rich foods that you were mentioning, all those root vegetables, and just kind of allowing the body to take in a concentrated amount through soups and stews instead of through raw juices and things like that. Even from a Ayurvedic standpoint, even though January people are, we hear a lot about like, do a cleanse, do a juice cleanse. But from an Ayurvedic standpoint, a juice cleanse is more tonifying to the body in the hotter months when the days are longer, there's more light, there's more heat, and you're really drawing that and kind of cooling and drawing the energy from the raw juices, especially if your gut is in a pretty decent place. I rarely put a client on a raw juice cleanse if their gut is not strong enough. They're better to go through more of a tonifying soup gut cleanse, strengthening, balancing type of process. So a cleanse really needs to be qualified. There are different types of cleanses, and they don't all involve, raw juice.
Those are all great points. And just to frame it even more, there's the idea of, you've all put forth such great suggestions about the kinds of foods that you can eat. My gut feels better just thinking about those kinds of foods, especially this time of year. But again, for the viewer, you can think about it like, these are the foods that you can eat. In a way, by default, we're saying that it's sort of an elimination diet as well, because we're not talking about bread and pasta and gluten and dairy. And so think about it as the first step, as eliminating some of the foods that we all know that we need to take a break from every now and then. And then that's the first step in cleansing. You don't necessarily need to even start to get into thinking about liver cleansing herbs and things that soothe the digestive system in a supplement way, although those can be adjuncts and helpful. Just by the process of eliminating certain foods, your gut is going to be happy and get that rest that Leona is talking about. To the point even that some people may even want to consider a fast. To your point, though, in the wintertime, that may not be the easiest thing or the best thing to do. It may be a little bit better in the summertime, unless your body is the body type that can handle a fast. But that's another thing to consider.
Or maybe just to eliminate, not so much of a fast, but eliminate some of those toxins that can cause leaky gut. We were talking about some cold foods, raw foods, or dairy. Have to also throw in their alcohol and cigarettes and coffee and stuff like that. A lot of that stuff can be pretty intense on the nervous system and the digestion. So if we need something that's warm and comforting, especially during these challenging months we're going through, we need to sometimes get creative with some nice soups and stews and some nice teas and herbal teas and stuff like that, as opposed to some things that might be a happiness for today, but then some challenges for tomorrow and the next day. Those are a couple.
Well, I love the dry January. The dry January is a great way to kick off the new year for sure. So to your point about, I love the collective, trend of going without alcohol for all of January. It's great.
I would also say that in terms of cleansing, which means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, one thing you could consider also is going off all refined salt, sugar, and oil. And you'd be surprised at how your taste buds will change after that. that, you know, it's the same thing that if you do like, say, like a raw food cleanse, if your stomach can handle it, if your, you know, your Gucci can handle it, if your Agni or your digestive fire, your taste buds will shift and you will become more sensitive to the flavors that are already present in the food and not require an ultra stimulation of your taste buds to feel satisfied. We've become accustomed to so much excessive salt and sugar. And if you eliminate it for even just 2 weeks and you come back and you try and eat like a corn chip or something that's like heavily flavored, you're like, oh my God, it's almost off-putting on how we've kind of, you know, allowed ourselves or, you know, numbed our taste buds out. And those excessive things, a little bit of salt is fine, a little sugar is fine. A lot of those things can really either stress our kidneys or whack out our blood sugar. And it's just not existing in a state of nature. We should be able to taste the foods as they normally are without need to doctor them up. You should be able to eat a spear of asparagus and it should taste sweet to you. And if it doesn't taste sweet to you, then you have accustomed too much sugar. And so I would also submit that as a type of cleanse is a flavor cleanse, where you're essentially allowing your taste buds to reset and reinstituting your natural instincts and natural sensitivities to foods.
And it makes it all the better if we do have access to farmers markets, local farmers, food that's coming from regenerative farms.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, so as we're regenerating our microbiome and our gut and healing our gut, it sort of parallels the healing of the macrobiome or the earth and the environment as well. So it's a great synergy. And those foods always taste better than
absolutely,
foods
100%.
that are not grown that way.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's just the experience that I think that's the benefit of doing any type of elimination diet or cleanse. It's a reset. It's a reset to preference and taste. And I'm sure you guys see it. I see it with everyone I work with. When they do something like that, it helps to readjust or reset their palate and their experience of food. And I love bringing that to the table. Is part of a gut cleanse, not only for appreciating the taste of food, which direct from the farm is a better way to really get the taste, but also informing your microbiome, because we're going to get a lot more diversity in terms of getting that food direct from the farm when that's possible. It's not always possible, but when it is.
Great points, everyone. Thank you so much for that. Well, that's all the time we have today. If you have a topic you'd like to learn more about, let us know with a comment on social media. And also don't forget to subscribe to our The Well YouTube channel. Thank you for joining us. And please join us next time for more wellness tips. Remember, regardless of where we are, our resources in The Well are limitless.